there's an economic element to it as well. If the average person has less money in their pocket, when everything else is more expensive, they have less money to come into this shop here near the square in Macomb and take their family out to lunch. They'll do that one time less a week, you know, and that affects everyone, especially small businesses. So my goal is to try to eliminate the burdens as much as possible on working class families, middle class families, and hopefully foster an environment where that level of income inequality through tax policy and deregulation or regulating situations so they don't send jobs overseas. Just basic things that the Democratic Party has stood for a long time.
You can't really, as the government, step in though and tell an executive how much they can make and how much they can pay their workers.
And nor would I ever. But what you can do is foster an environment so there can be collective bargaining, and through that negotiation with the management and the workers, they come to a good resolution where the workers get a decent pay, fundamental fairness, a decent working environment. So as a government official, I would not see me as being heavy-handed in the sense of forcing anyone to pay a certain wage, but eliminating the barriers to workers being able to make an argument for themselves through collective bargaining. That's just one method. That's what I would say.
Are you a supporter of the Affordable Care Act?
I am a supporter of the Affordable Care Act. It's clear now. 18 million more people are insured than they weren't insured before. Now, are there problems with the system? Healthcare costs still too high? Of course. Those are things that you need to work on. And the way good government works is when there are situations where parts of an act are not functioning properly, not lowering the cost, those should be removed. I still believe that. That's how good government should operate.
Go
ahead.
Now, Darren LaHette has been very vocal about what specific positions in terms of what committees and other efforts he'd like to seek out once in Washington. Do you have anything particularly?
Well, I know exactly what his emphasis on. It's the same emphasis that the Republican Party has had for a long time. He's trying to enhance the emphasis on large banks and large corporations. These multinational corporations who have sliced wages, who've sent jobs overseas. That's where and you can tell by his campaign contributions, that's where his support lies. Now, in terms of what positions in Congress I would like to serve on, I would assume it would be based on my experience. I'm a teacher and I'm a soldier, and I would think those are the things that I could best serve in Congress on.
Do you think you'll have union support for your campaign?
I'm just going to work really hard to get as much support as I possibly can. I think my message resonates, not just with union workers, but any middle-class Americans who feel burdened and has less of a say than they thought they had 20 years ago.
So this is an overwhelmingly Republican area. It's proven time and time again, re-electing Republican incumbents.
Sure, certainly.
They have particular views that they stick to: infrastructure, agriculture, transportation, things that continue, especially at a municipal level, by our local leaders to be a priority, not just on the congressional
level. You're talking about Republicans or Democrats?
Republicans, things like
Republicans are for. I would consider most of those Democratic proposals. The Democratic Party was the one who mainly supports the Amtrak program, not the Republicans. It's the Democratic Party who has supported the infrastructure improvements by and large, not the Republicans. That's just, and people should know that. People should know that. And people should know that it's the Democratic Party that created Medicare. It's the Democratic Party that created the Veterans Administration. It's the Democratic Party that created, the GI Bill of Rights. Those are all Democratic proposals.
And in terms of voting to uphold our level of Amtrak funding, other whatever funding comes in on the federal level for our infrastructure, is it fair to say that you would aim to uphold some of those traditions?
Not only uphold, but expand on those. Our bridges, especially in our area in Quincy, the Memorial Bridge needs work. It just does.
Where's the money come from to pay for infrastructure improvements?
It's a misplaced priority. If we look at the situation, and we've had production, we've had expansion, even since 2007, but the average person hasn't seen that. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to alter the tax schedule. You know, if you look at the very top of the tax schedule, $350,000 is the max. So someone who makes $350,000, maybe your local doctor or something, a surgeon, and someone who's an athlete or something like that who makes $20 million a year are paying the exact same tax rate. You know, things like that can be altered to provide some more revenue so we can pay for some of these things.
I think maybe a point Jackie was getting at is this district was drawn Republican and is drawn to benefit Republicans. So how do you go about attacking that as a Democrat to win the election?
You know, from my perspective, there's no question that these districts are drawn. This just happens to be our district drawn to favor the Republican Party, but the district right next to us favors the Democratic Party. This is a problem throughout the country. If you take the 435 districts around the country, any given year there's 10 or 20 seats that are actually contested, where the election is relatively close. The rest, because of gerrymandering, aren't even contested. I can't really worry about that. All I know is I live in the district, and if I want to push forward some of the ideas that I explained today, I can't be concerned necessarily about that. I try to do the best I can to get to as many people as possible. I want to make one point. You know, Quincy, for example, is overwhelmingly conservative at this time. 20 years ago, it was overwhelmingly Democratic. Now, Quincy hasn't changed in 20 years. It just hasn't. I've lived there. I know. It hasn't changed fundamentally in 20 years. There hasn't been an influx of immigration or anything like that. The Democrats are still there. They're not voting. They don't feel connected to the system. Maybe it's the money. Maybe it's some failed policies that the Democratic Party in the state and some of our failed politicians, maybe those are the reasons why. They're still there. They're just not voting. The challenge is get them out the vote.
And do you feel you need to also sway some Republicans to come over and vote for you because this is drawn to largely benefit Republicans in this district?
Well, if you take the national average, I think 35% of the nation says they're Democrat and 30% says they're Republican. And then you have that chunk in the middle who can get swayed one way or the other. Now, in our district, they lean more Republican. But I think what I'm saying would resonate with them. I'm talking about helping the families. That's all I'm interested in. I don't think it's a Democratic or Republican idea or cause. I think it's an American cause, and that's what I'm interested in. I think that can resonate with them.
Do you feel you have the campaign infrastructure in place to cover this entire district in this short amount of time?
That is a real challenge. But I can tell you that the party in the different counties are frustrated with the system, and there is a concerted effort to get people more engaged, and maybe this election will give them the reason to do that. But I can tell you they're frustrated.
More? I think that's good for now. Unless you want to add anything.